4 centuries, Africa's voice was silenced under foreign rule. But from the shadows of oppression rose a fire, a movement of men and women who dared to dream of freedom. This is the story of how Africa rose from rebellion to independence and reclaimed her destiny. The story begins in the early 20th century. Across Africa, colonial governments ruled with iron fists, controlling land, trade, and even thought. But Africans began to awaken. In schools, churches, and secret gatherings, they whispered of freedom, of a future owned by Africans themselves. In Nigeria, Herbert Macaulay spoke against British injustice. In Ghana, Joseph Casely Hayford founded the National Congress of British West Africa, calling for African representation and unity. Though small at first, these movements planted the seeds of something unstoppable. After World War II, the world changed. African soldiers who had fought for freedom in Europe returned home, to find themselves still colonized. Their courage abroad became fuel for rebellion at home. Leaders like Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, and Nnamdi Azikiwe of Nigeria began to rally millions. Their message was simple: Africa must be free. In the streets of Accra, Nairobi, and Lagos, protests grew into revolutions. What began as whispers became war cries for independence. Freedom did not come easily. In Kenya, the Mau Mau rebellion fought the British in the forests, a brutal struggle that claimed thousands of lives. In Algeria, the fight against France turned into one of the bloodiest wars of the 20th century. And in Congo, dreams of freedom were betrayed by greed and violence. But through pain and loss, the spirit of Africa never broke. Because every fallen rebel became a symbol, every prison cell became a classroom for revolution. Then, one by one, the chains began to fall. In 1957, Ghana became the first sub-Saharan African nation to gain independence under Nkrumah's leadership. His cry echoed across the continent. The independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked with the total liberation of Africa. From 1960 onward, a wave of independence swept through the continent. Nigeria, Senegal, Tanzania, Kenya, and dozens more nations stood tall, raising their flags to the sky, and the world finally saw Africa rise again. Africa's freedom was not a gift, it was earned. With courage, unity, and sacrifice. The rise of African nationalism wasn't just the end of colonialism. It was the rebirth of a continent. And though the struggle continues in new forms, the dream that began in whispers now roars across generations. Africa must be free, and Africa must be one.